Who was she when you entered the relationship? And why did she choose to ignore the red flags? Square one. That's going to be important for you to reflect on your current relationship. But again, if you're single right now, freaking great, because that means that you might be able to avoid the mistakes or some mistakes, and it's going to bring clarity. As you're asking yourself, can I make this work? Is this good enough? Is this really it? I'm going to ask you some questions. How did the two of you meet? Simple question brings a lot of perspective. Who were you when you met? Who was that version of you when you met? Where did you meet? What was your first impression? Because I'm not saying first impressions are always correct, because sometimes we bring in our judgments and whatsoever, but usually that's where your oracle comes through. Your oracle is that highly intuitive essence of yours. She speaks to you, even if you ignore her voice. She speaks. So what was your first impression? What were the first words you exchanged? Or what was the first thing he said to you? How did he react to you? What made you feel drawn to him? And what's interesting is a lot of things that end up annoying us later on in the relationship, were they there in the beginning? And oftentimes the things that then annoy us were things that really magnetized us in the beginning. Like, at least I have that experience. And so I'm like, wait, I loved it in the beginning. What made me love it in the beginning? And what is getting me annoyed with that right now? So just perspective. Another one is, what were the red flags and why did you ignore them? There's nothing wrong with red flags, right? I'm not saying that either of you have to be this perfected version. It doesn't exist. The question is, are you observing the red flags with neutrality? Seeing them for what they are, and maybe dating the person and seeing like, where's this progressing into with neutrality. That is very healthy. I think everyone comes with some red flags, or maybe there's something that might be perceived by you as a red flag. That in itself is not a deal breaker. But what you're doing and how you're reacting to the red flags, that's a really important question. Because depending on where we come from, we tend to ignore them. And my question is, why did you ignore the red flags? And usually the answer is that you deliberately ignored these red flags because you wanted it to work, or you wanted to fulfill some form of lack within you. It's beautiful to observe red flags with neutrality, see what's going to happen, see how they progress, know that they're there. You can also, of course, in the relationship, bring in your red flags and turn them into green flags, right? I left every single relationship in my life better than I entered it. So that's the whole alchemy of a relationship. So of course you can bring in certain dependencies, or you can bring in certain red flags and then transmutate them within the relationship. That's kind of like the mastery that happens within a relationship. But if you ignore these red flags and they're still a thing, why did you ignore them? Who made the choice for this relationship? Was it the elevated human in you, or was it that chimp survival aspect of you that made this choice? Never choose from lack, always choose from abundance. And I know that's easier said than done, but if you can actually follow through with that, you will save yourself a lot of pain, a lot of tears in the future. Anytime we make a choice from lack, doesn't mean that we can't bring it back to abundance, but it takes a lot of awareness to do so. And so when you choose a relationship from immense emotional lack, maybe financial dependency, maybe you don't know what your future holds, you don't have your own business going on, you're not following your own passions, right? There might be this armor of self-love that you haven't created yet, and you choose the relationship for validation or whatsoever, right? Whether it's emotional lack, physical lack, financial lack, spiritual lack, it doesn't matter. If you choose a relationship from lack, it will come to bite you in the ass later on. 10 out of 10. Doesn't mean it's not reversible, but it takes a lot of awareness to reverse that. You entered the relationship on a deficit. Because regardless of how presentable you might seem, regardless of how cute you look and how great you make your life seem when you meet this person, if the man feels attracted to you, your oracle will question that man later on. The oracle is, again, that truest intuitive part of you. Why will your oracle question that man? Because your oracle will be in the subconscious of like, okay, she has no self-esteem. She feels unworthy. She doesn't love herself. Why are you attracted to her? So your oracle will question why the man that is in your life is attracted to a low energy version of yourself, which will make you respect that man less. Oftentimes, I'm not saying all the time. That is just an added component. This could be a deficit because you can't trick your oracle. Your oracle is the truth. And if the truth is that right now you just don't have your ish together, right? You're not on purpose. You're confused. You feel like you don't love yourself, all of these things. Your oracle knows. And so your oracle will question that man that feels drawn to that type of woman. Even though you might look cute on the outside, it doesn't matter. So even if that is not an active thought process of you, it is something that is running in the background. And that might be a downfall for the relationship. And maybe you can catch that, and maybe again you can both together transmute the red flags into green flags. I'm just putting this out there. If you enter a relationship from lack rather than abundance, you will remove choice later on. Why is that? If you enter from lack, your relationship now fills a gap. And now you're entering your relationship almost for survival. Because now the survival part of you is triggered. If you don't have the self-worth, the self-love, maybe the financial independence, the creative independence, all of these things, if you don't have that, and you enter the relationship from that lack, now the relationship will for a while fill all of these gaps. So now you go to your relationship for emotional validation and love. You go to your relationship for safety. You go to your relationship for maybe financial stability or the illusion of stability. And so now instead of having this be an internalized process, you externalized your safety. Which means now that chimp part in your brain is activated. This primal survival part of you. Now, when something in the relationship happens that is a boundary breaker, you remove choice. Because if the boundary is broken, like if you've been disrespected, or if you've been cheated on, or if there's just things going on that your human self would say, nah, my heart deserves more than that. I deserve a higher experience of life than that. Right? Your human self would observe it like, yeah, no, that's just no. But your survival part is like, but survival. So we stay in, they don't even have to be toxic, right? It doesn't always have to be toxic. Maybe it's just super mediocre or super unfulfilling or super bland. But your survival part will stay through that for the sake of survival. Now, can you change that within? Yes, it just takes a lot of awareness, because once that chimp part in your brain is activated, once that survival part is activated, it's very, very strong. It's very, very powerful. And it's usually much stronger in velocity than that essence aspect or that human aspect. Some could call it higher self, God self, source self, whatever. It's more subtle. While that part is like survival. And that's the reason why I'm sure we've all been there. We've lasted way too long in some really toxic relationships because it became addictive, right? And it's like all of a sudden, even though the person cheated on you for the 10th time, you find yourself at his doorstep. Why is that? Because it literally feels like without this person you would die, because you entered from lack. And so now you have a person like spitting in your face, whether it's figuratively or actually, literally, and you're still knocking at his door. You're still like, the moment he just texts, you're there. Like, I hope not, but maybe we've all been there. I've been there. Like, addicted. It was a drug, and I was very well aware of it. I just didn't know how to get off of this drug. And now I understand it's because I entered from so much lack. And this person fulfilled the role that only God and myself can fulfill. And so the survival part felt like it was dependent on him, even though it wasn't real. I wouldn't have died without him. You know, like, he didn't even provide anything but this emotional high and low. But there was this deep idea, or this, I couldn't like remove myself until it became so bad, and then this eternal strength came in for me to say no. But I'm sure we all had that, and the reason for that is this survival part that is very activated. So maybe you're not in relationships that operate on this immense level of addiction, but even if you entered a quasi-healthy relationship, but if you entered it from lack, the question is, who's making the decision? Would your human have walked away at a certain point because boundaries were broken? And did you stay because your chimp part, that survival part, was more activated than the higher aspect of yourself, the higher faculties of yourself? That's a good question to ask you. And that's why it's so important to build yourself up first. And it's easy to say, because if I look back throughout the relationships, I was able to build myself up. My relationships helped me to build myself up, which in the best case scenario, that's what a father does. A father provides provision for you so you can build yourself up, and you don't have to jump from relationship to seek that. And I'm truly sorry if you didn't have that experience. I didn't have that experience, and my relationships became a substitute for a father figure. And that's a lot of burden for the man, a burden that none of these men ever deserved. And so it's easy to say, well, build yourself up first before you enter a relationship. Because I've also been on the other end where my relationships actually helped me to help myself. But it's a decision first, right? It's an internal decision. And it's so important to realize that there's really no savior on that white horse. And that white horse savior you're looking for is you. And only once you realize that only you can save yourself, and you don't need someone else, you will make it. Even if you sit somewhere right now back in your mom's house with $0, whatever it is, or even if you've been broken down, cheated on, discarded, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can build yourself up first. And once you do that, actually then can a good and godly man enter your life. Before that, well, if you don't do that, if you come from lack, everyone on that white horse will just be an illusion. But once you like step on that freaking white horse and you ride along, then this actual man can come, and it won't be a surprise, right? It won't be this like, oh, I can't believe that such a good man entered. This sounds too good to be true. No, it's like, duh, I did the work. I did the inner work, the purification. Of course, this man is a representation of me. It's a mirror of me. Of course, he's good. Of course, he's godly. That's just a natural byproduct of the work you're doing. So, before we get tangible into the tangible action steps of how do you move forward if you're currently questioning the relationship, just one last thing. Do not sleep with him. Do not sleep with him. You know that already. It will immediately throw you into the survival part. So if you've met a man and you slept with him really early on, chances are you didn't make a logical decision. Because the moment you sleep with someone, the primal instinct is activated, that chimp part of your brain is activated. Now, instead of neutrally observing the person, you are creating the fantasy because the bonding process has already started. And now a person will always show you very clearly who they are. The question is, are you observing that with neutrality, or do you try to turn them into this fantasy person of yours because you slept with him and now you want him to be a certain person, and you turn everything that he's showing you into this fantasy? Because that's often what happened. When you take your time, a lot of time, okay, a lot of time, you can actually make a decision from logic, then bring your heart in, and now you have a coherent decision. Now logic observed, your heart is there in as well, and then bring the lower centers in. Then start the bonding process. But first, your masculine, your inner father has to observe from logic, is this a safe decision? Is this on paper a safe human being, a safe man? Like, do the numbers add up? Then your heart makes the decision of, am I emotionally safe with this person? Does this person see me? Does he make me feel safe? Does he make me feel desired? Does he make me feel appreciated and seen? Is he emotionally intelligent? Is he very heart-centered? Is he a protector, a provider, right? All of these things. And once all of these boxes are checked and you observed him from logic and from heart, then you can bring in the lower parts. But when you bring in the lower parts first, you kind of mess it up all at once right from the start, because now you don't see clearly anymore. So just putting that out there, it's your decision, love. But honestly, take your time, because there's a lot you have to lose. So, okay, the 4 steps on what do I do, because I like to get tangible, okay? I like to give you actually tangible action steps on, okay, I'm indecisive, I don't know, there's this constant question of, is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? I'm questioning the relationship. Let's go there. First of all, there's nothing wrong with questioning the relationship. It's in fact very natural. Just because you are questioning the relationship doesn't mean you have to actually move through with that. And contemplating or entertaining a breakup is just as natural or normal as contemplating suicide. Nothing weird, nothing strange here. So I know it sounds very dramatic for some people. It's not that dramatic, because what's actually happening is that your system is just overwhelmed with all of the intensity of emotions, and your system actually cannot hold that, or doesn't have the bandwidth to hold all of this processing. So because the psychological pressure for you is too much, or the psychological pressure that, you know, would have to look into a timeline where all of this works out, you want to get rid of the problem really quick. And instead of holding the problem in your field, because that's too much psychological pressure, you're like, oh no, let me just kill myself. That would solve all of my problem. Like, it's this immediate like solution thing where it's like you just want to push something away really quick. Same happens with the relationship. It's just the psychological pressure. Like the pressure of not seeing a breakup as a solution, and like holding that pressure of, okay, who do I have to transform into? Who does he have to transform into to make this relationship work? That might require a lot of change and a lot of inner alchemy. And because that is too much for us to handle in that very moment, we try to just brush it off and push it away. We're like, okay, let me just break up, problem solved. Psychological pressure removed. Because sometimes it's just like this pressure cooker, which is great because that means internal transformation. And sometimes we just want to break from that pressure cooker, or that spiritual pressure cooker, that energetic pressure cooker. So then we go to, oh, let me just kill myself. Or let me just, like exit the relationship. The good news is it's normal. The good news is it's not valid. Just because you're contemplating it doesn't mean you have to move through with that. Okay, so if someone tells you they're contemplating suicide, it's not that dramatic. I don't want to downplay it, it depends. But usually it's just a lot of psychological pressure, right? I've been there many, many times. It's at this point, I know it's not a big deal. I just reached a point where I can't take the pain anymore. The psychological pressure, the alchemical pressure is too much, and I want a quick way out. But fact is, there is no quick way out. So the same goes for the relationship. Just because you're contemplating it, just because you're watching this video, doesn't mean you have to actually move through with that. Maybe you just wanted to give your psyche and your being a little break and entertain an easier timeline for a second, or a maybe perceived easier timeline. Release the pressure, because chances are you don't have to make a decision right now. There's no one holding a gun to your head telling you choose right now. So the inner urgency is creating this confusion. Like you yourself, by thinking you have to choose right now if you're in it or if you're out, if you're moving forward with the relationship or if you're breaking up, that inner pressure, that urgency is artificial. There's no one adding that pressure to you. You get to breathe. You get to sit in, I don't know. You get to sit in, do I choose this? Do I choose that? You get to choose in the middle. You get to be in the middle. You get to choose the middle of like, I don't know. You get to explore the state of not knowing. You get to make yourself free of that, because the urgency is usually self-created. And when you take a breath and you're just in the state of like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know, and that's okay. I don't know, and guess what? My feminine is really comfortable in the I don't know. You get to be in that. When it's truly time to move on, you will know. You will know. When it really is time to go, or when it really is time to stay and make that decision, either way, you will know. In the meantime, in between time, be with the unknown and stop trying to force a decision. Because we've all had that. I'm sure we all had that. That when it was time, there was this strength that came in and that helped us to push through. Just like when a woman gives birth and she feels like she's just like, I can't anymore, I'm done. There's this strength that comes in the last 5 minutes to help her push the baby out. And it's palpable. The strength is palpable. And that's the same strength, that God's strength, that will come in to help you push through the rebirth, whatever decision it is, whether it is like actually like I'm choosing this relationship or actually I'm leaving. Either way, you don't have to make that decision. God's got you. Give that worry to God. Again, don't try to do the cosmic job yourself, because it is not your job, love. What are the 4 steps in between that you can do right now? First of all, visualize. Blank slate everything. Blank slate everything. And visualize the relationship that your heart desires. Don't look at, well, what can my partner provide right now? Delete that. What do you desire? What does your heart desire? And visualize that. Blank slate your current reality and really go deep into the visualization of what you truly want. What's the future that you want? Delete your past, delete everything. Start from 0 point, like nothingness. And if there's nothing, there's everything. There's limitless potential. What would my life look like? What would I desire? What does my heart desire? What does God want to create through me? Start there. Visualize that. Write it out. Envision your dream life. Envision the legacy that you want to create for yourself and your children and the future generations. What kind of man in your heart's desire fits next to that or fits into that? And yeah, maybe it comes in totally different packaging. This is just a visualization for you to attune to a certain frequency. The next step is the inner work. There's things you have to do either way. You might as well start them now. So Who were you when you met? Where were you lacking? Where were you in fear? Where did you lack clarity? What were the red flags? Why did you choose to ignore them? You know, where is space for healing within? Like after you've asked yourself all of these questions, you'll probably see, oh wow, there's still a lot of like exploration to do within myself. You can start this now. You know, just because you're unsure about your relationship doesn't mean that you can't do something that will help you become sure from within. And the more you become yourself, the easier it is for you to make a truthful decision. So the inner work and the inner exploration is something you'll do anyway. So do it now and remove the focus so much from the relationship and put the focus back into you. The next part is action. Make your life more of what you desire it to be. That means maybe get into a beautiful physical shape, right? Approach a new way of eating more wholesomely. Like, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to be? How can you become the healthiest version of yourself, right? Focus on yourself. Focus on your business. Focus on your legacy. Focus on the things that are actually here to stay, regardless of the outer circumstances. What's the project that is fulfilling? And with a more fulfilled version of you, naturally, everything around you will become a more fulfilling mirror. When you're happy within, everything on the outside will feel easier, of course, naturally so. So, how can you make the world around you more beautiful right now? And with that, can you foster other relationships more? That doesn't mean run from your current relationship. That also doesn't mean entertain other men. But what I'm saying is, are there friendships that want your nourishment? Are there mentors or teachers that can really inspire you right now? Is there a coach you can get or someone that can help you get to the next level? Is there something you can work through? Can you take action on making your life and yourself a more beautiful being? And can you make your life a more beautiful existence right now? And then the fourth step is prayer. Prayer. And prayer is not just envisioning a beautiful future and then giving gratitude to that future, but prayer is ask for truth to be revealed. Prayer is the tears you're crying. Prayer is your desperation that you're verbalizing. So pray for more truth to be revealed, and it will reveal itself. Whether you stay or whether you leave, none of it makes you a failure. You're not a failure for leaving a relationship, and you're not a failure for, of course, choosing it over and over again. Either way, the only way that you can fail is when you choose to ignore your heart's desires over and over and over again. Keep shining, my bright one. And I know that when it's time, it's like the decision will be made through you. You don't have to make that decision. The decision will be made through you. So release that pressure, release that amount of burden that you're carrying on your shoulders right now. If you want the newest transmission, first things first, sign up for the newsletter. Link is down below. I love you so much. If you're excited to work with me or if you feel a calling to work with me, you know where to find me. Link is down below. I love you, and I'll see you next week.